Microphone check, 1, 2, 3, 4. Microphone check, 1, 2. All right, question number 1, do I like snow? The short answer to that question is no, I don't like snow. And of course, people always ask, well, why don't you like snow? Well, for a meteorologist, snowfall forecasting is a lot of work. I mean, there are so many subtle details that can really mess up a snowfall forecast, especially in eastern North Carolina, as many residents know. And of course, when the roads get bad, we can't get out and travel in it, so we get stuck at the station. So that means a lot of time away from family and friends. So no, I don't really like snow. But I was a kid once, and if you'd have told me as a kid that we were about to get a big snowfall, I would have been ecstatic. And of course, if you were to tell me we'd get a big snowfall just in time for Christmas, well, that almost never happened. But I do remember this one year, once upon a time in the year 1989. We all know that Christmas is one of the busiest times of the year. Our daily work schedules have to keep up with parties, plays, and of course, shopping. We stay so busy it's easy to forget that Christmas should be a special time. And for many, there is something extra special about a white Christmas. But it takes a rare set of ingredients to get a snowstorm this far south, so a green Christmas is the norm for eastern North Carolina. Now, the holiday season of 1989 got off to a fairly normal start. Nintendo was still the king of the Christmas wish list for Santa. The traditional Christmas classics still ruled the airwaves as shoppers scurried about. And in between those shopping trips, parents were sneaking in a few hours to see the latest misadventures of the Griswolds in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. No doubt about it, by December 1st, 1989, it was beginning to look a lot like Christmas, but it certainly hadn't felt much like it. Record daytime highs in the mid-80s were set just before Thanksgiving, and it looked like Santa would have to break out the Bermuda shorts. At the very least, the prospects for a white Christmas seem remote. To get snow, it helps to have a readily available supply of cold Arctic air. North Carolina usually averages highs in the 50s and 60s during December, cool but not nearly cold enough for snow. Still, every once in a while, Arctic high-pressure systems develop and drift into the United States. And as Christmas drew closer in 1989, the atmosphere was gradually shifting its flow, allowing an unusually cold pool of air to become poised for a southward plunge. But you need more than cold air to get snow. You have to have a source of moisture. And it appeared that North Carolina was just about ready to get one. In fact, what happened next would bring a smile to the face of Scrooge himself. The final days leading up to Christmas Eve can be one of the busiest times of the year, and December 21st, 1989 was no different. But while many residents were dealing with last-minute holiday preparations, forecasters were dealing with a completely different set of problems. An area of low pressure was taking shape near Florida, and it looked like the system was on a northeastward path that would guide it close to North Carolina waters just in time for Christmas. There was really nothing that unusual about the initial setup. Many coastal storms have affected North Carolina through the years. But this system was starting to interact with cold Arctic air already in place across much of the eastern United States. Sensing that North Carolina could be in store for winter precipitation of some kind, forecasters were already issuing various advisories and warnings throughout the region. The developing storm system continued to intensify while a constant stream of cold air flooded in. Most residents reported the first few flakes of snow on December 22nd to the absolute delight of many, but not everyone looks forward to seeing snow, especially at Christmas time. DOT workers and emergency planners were on high alert as snowfall totals began to pile up. Business owners were forced to make difficult decisions about store hours during what is considered to be the most lucrative time of the year. Regardless of how you felt about the snow, by Christmas Eve it was pretty obvious we were in the middle of a full-blown winter storm with all the trimmings. By daybreak Christmas Eve, many locations had already picked up between 9 and 11 inches of snow, and it was still coming down. Many local travelers opted to stay indoors and avoid the roadways altogether. But there was at least one traveler that was accustomed to snow. As you may expect, kids weren't too concerned about Santa's ability to make his deliveries. It seems that anyone hailing from the North Pole could surely handle a foot of snow down south. It's one thing to talk about the Christmas snow of 1989, but for a storm of that magnitude for this part of the country that time of year, well, the pictures just speak for themselves. The Christmas snow of 1989 was definitely one for the record books in more ways than one. For coastal counties, it was the biggest snowfall in recorded history. For many across the region, it was the only white Christmas they had ever seen. When all was said and done, over 15 inches of snow was officially recorded in Wilmington. Nearly half a foot fell across parts of Pitt County, and storm totals approached 20 inches farther south. Obviously, the accumulations were impressive, but equally impressive were the extreme cold temperatures recorded during the storm. Several new record low temperatures were set on Christmas Day, including a 0-degree minimum in Wilmington and a -5-degree reading in Jacksonville. Those were actual air temperatures, not wind chill. By then, of course, most families were snuggled safely in their homes, enjoying postcard images that are seldom seen in eastern North Carolina. Even though our look back at the 1989 Christmas snow has been lighthearted, we certainly don't want to gloss over the fact that there were storm casualties reported with the system. There were many traffic accidents on record, and severe crop damage occurred across many southeastern states. One of the questions we get asked the most has to do with snowfall forecasting itself. Why is it so difficult to get a snowfall forecast right? Through the years, viewers have become accustomed to seeing flat weather maps. It's easy to forget the atmosphere is actually three-dimensional. To get snow, you need a certain set of ingredients in your thermal profile. You need the air sufficiently cold all the way through the column from top to bottom, then you can actually get snowfall occurring near the surface. Now, oftentimes we'll see the air start out cold higher in the atmosphere, then it may encounter a layer of warmer temperatures and not really have time to completely reorganize into a true snowflake before reaching the surface. That is when you get sleet. On other occasions, we'll see the atmosphere warm enough for liquid precipitation and stay just above freezing until the liquid reaches the surface. Then it freezes on contact. That's when we get freezing rain and a mess. So to accurately predict frozen precipitation at the surface, you not only need to know what the temperatures are doing at the surface, but at every level throughout the atmosphere. And that's a tall order even for the most sophisticated computer models. And the strength of the low-pressure system will determine whether or not you see a little bit of snow or a lot. And of course, no amount of snow lasts forever. By the time classes resumed in January, most of the 1989 Christmas storm snowfall had disappeared. It was gone, but certainly not forgotten. A snowfall forecast, or really any kind of forecast, is only as good as the team behind it. And I'm honored to work with my fellow meteorologists here at Storm Team 9. David Sawyer, Rob Martin, Christopher Tyndall. Without them, there would be no Storm Team 9. Like myself, David has spent most of his life in eastern North Carolina, so he remembers full well the impact of the 1989 Christmas snow.
1989 was a significant year for me personally. I was a newlywed. My wife Kathy and I got married in 1989, so we were celebrating our first Christmas. Kathy is from Jacksonville, North Carolina, so yes, we were at Kathy's home for our first Christmas together, visiting with her parents. First of all, it was extremely cold in eastern North Carolina that year. And of course, to have any significant chances of snow, you've got to have the Arctic air in place, and boy, was it in place. The next thing I remember was the duration of the snow. I was absolutely amazed of how long the snow fell, and of course, how much snow fell. As my wife shows in one of the pictures that I have for our viewers for you to look at, my wife is holding a yardstick, and as you can see in that drift, we're almost 3 feet of snow where that wind-driven snow had indeed built up in that snow drift. It was fascinating. We built a huge snowman, and of course the ironic part about a huge snow is, unlike when we freely travel when the roads are clear, all of our plans changed because roads were impassable with all of that snow, especially down east where we were. I'm still fascinated by the way all the ingredients came together, from the cold Arctic air mass that was firmly in place to the path of the low pressure that stayed more off the coast. That's why most of the precipitation was over the coast. Well, I don't hide it. I love snow.
Now, Rob knows a thing or two about snow, especially during his tenure as a meteorologist up north.
One biggest snow that really stands out to me was my time in Binghamton, New York at Fox 40 there. We had a whopping 40 inches of snow the week before Christmas in 2020. I remember going home that day, and I had a 6 to 8 foot wall of snow from the plows in my driveway, and thank goodness my neighbors had snow blowers to help me. Otherwise I'd have been there all day picking, shoveling that snow out of there.
Now, Christopher may be a new addition to Storm Team 9, but he understands a great deal about the importance of forecasting and accurately communicating that forecast.
In early January of 2018, we got about 4 to 5 inches of snow here in eastern North Carolina, and living in eastern North Carolina my whole life, I would consider that a big snow. Forecasting snow can be tricky at times here in eastern North Carolina. You really got to have that air column super cold all the way from the cloud all the way to the ground in order for that snowflake to stay frozen from the sky to the ground.
You certainly don't need to be a meteorologist to appreciate the impact of snowfall in eastern North Carolina. News anchor Ken Watlington is a native of Plymouth, and he has has a few memories of his own.
I lived in the Midwest in my adult years for about 9 years, and it was all too common and it became a nuisance. However, I was coming home for Christmas not that long ago, and I made the 10.5-hour drive from Ohio to Plymouth in Washington County, and halfway home you get word that, hey, maybe there's some winter weather coming to North Carolina. I'm like, it's not going to be that bad. I can handle anything because of what I've dealt with the last few years. But the day after Christmas, Plymouth, North Carolina, we get 13 or so inches of snow, and all I can think is, this is my vacation. I came to get away from this. Do I like snow? Not particularly.
You know, I do like the snow because we don't get it that often. I actually kind of consider it as a treat.
I got to admit, I love the snow, mainly because of the visual aspect of it. There's nothing more scenic than a backcountry road with the snow-lined trees and the snow extending back into the hills.
Sure, it was pretty the first time, but when you're dealing with it for months and months, you get over it.
Decades have passed since the Christmas snow of 1989, but it remains one of the more interesting stories in our weather history. Big snows don't happen often in coastal North Carolina at any time of the year, so a Christmas snow becomes the stuff of legend. Still, regardless of whether your Christmas is green or white, may it always be merry and bright. From all of us here at WNCT-9 on your side, I'm Storm Team 9 Chief Meteorologist Jerry Jackson. Thank you for joining us.